I have experienced India in its true form. I'm an army kid, and we used to travel after 2 or 3 years. I got my first job in one of the biggest liquor industries of India. I was posted in London with the same company, and I experienced sexual harassment from the then CEO of the company. Being the only girl, the first girl in liquor industry, they didn't know how to deal with me. They had no policies, they had no systems that they could work through. I chose to come back to India and met Elsa Marie de Silva, who became my closest friend and partner in this NGO, Red Dot Foundation. It was 2012 when the terrible gang rape of Jyoti Singh happened in Delhi in a public transport. Elsa and me started talking during that time, and we realized that we have faced sexual violence at a lot of times in our life in public spaces. And we started talking to our friends, and the more and more women we spoke to, we realized 95% of incidents are not reported. Even though 1 in 3 women always faces sexual harassment at least once in her lifetime. We wanted to see how can we bridge this gap of data. That is when Safecity was born. Safecity is a web and a mobile platform where we crowdsource data on sexual violence, and it's done absolutely anonymously. So it basically asks people to tell us what happened, where it happened, and when it happened. And as soon as they say it, it gets pinned onto a Google map. And as and when people start sharing their incidents, their experiences, reporting cases, you start seeing clusters of balloons in places. Once we have that trend, we then take that data to the authorities. When we used it with the police, they changed the beat patrol timing of the constables to the timing where we got the report something is happening. They've actually been able to catch the perpetrator. We started doing awareness workshops on sexual harassment, on what the law says, on IPCs, on POCSO, sexual violence in digital space, domestic violence. We collaborate a lot with other NGOs, with policymakers. We also work with ground communities in areas where women and girls are really vulnerable to being sexually harassed. So we have worked with the Western Railways as well. We have done a lot of audits for them and the other transport organizations. I am passionate about creating a global community where girls and women are free, feel safe, and have equal opportunity to live their full potential.
Thank you so much, Supreet, for being with us today. And I have to say thank you to Dynatrace for giving me this opportunity, first thing. Okay, before we start, something could be interesting here. The story of how I met Supreet. So I was on my way to Goa for the ETCIO conclave, end of May. And on the way to Goa, we had very bad weather. So we had to take a detour from Mumbai to Bangalore, halt in Bangalore in the flight, and come back to Goa. So we spent 5 hours together. She was just sitting next to me. She was on her way to Goa to help another victim. She was constantly getting calls from the Goa police. Where are you, ma'am? We can't find the victim. She's missing. And that's when we got to talking. And when I was conceptualizing this event, I was like, do I actually need a Bollywood star today? Or do I need someone like Supreet who can tell us what we can do to help this situation? So please bear with me, 15 minutes, and let's hear her out. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Resha, and thanks everyone for having me here. She forgot a very, very integral part of that, how we met, right? So there was a thunderstorm. We were caught in the middle of the air. We were not in Bangalore, and we thought this is our last flight. We are not returning from this. We were thinking of all the films which were made, you know, Final Destination and stuff, and that's how we bonded, and we started talking about a lot of things. So, but there's destiny, right? The stars have something written for you, and that's how I'm here. So thank you so much. I hope it's more than bearing the 15 minutes. I hope you understand and you join with us in fighting and ending gender-based violence in whatever small way that you can by the end of the day. So thanks, Resha.
So, what inspired you to start Safecity app and Red Dot Foundation?
So you've seen the film. You know that I was sexually harassed by my CEO when I was in London in one of India's biggest liquor company, United Breweries. I was 5 years old when I was abused by a house help. My father was in army, and we were left with him a lot of time. So I have also probably faced sexual violence from a very young age when I didn't even know what it meant. And when I came to India after leaving London when I was sexually harassed, I met Elsa. And in 2012, when the horrific gang rape of Jyoti Singh took place, we were talking and we realized that I have been an exception in reporting what I faced. But almost around 50 women we spoke to, our friends, our family members, none of them had reported it. And there was not a single woman or girl who said that she's not been sexually harassed. And that got us thinking as to why in this day and time, which is 12 years back, are we still talking about this problem? And we realized that there are two big reasons for that. One is people don't know what sexual harassment is. They don't know that commenting, eve-teasing is also part of sexual harassment, and it's a crime under the law of the land. Second is that people don't report, and the authorities don't have enough data to work with. So we realize that people don't want to report because there's name shame, family blaming, pressure from the society. The authorities are insensitive. They ask you a million of questions about how will they touch you and stuff. So we wanted to bridge the gap between what the reality was and what was being reported, because if the National Crime Bureau is saying there were 30,000 cases of sexual violence last year in India, I'm sorry, but I don't think that's the true figure. You probably have heard about these cases in the last 1 month itself, and of those which have come to media. So we wanted to bridge that gap, not develop a parallel system to resolve the problem, because I think we have great systems in the country, we just don't implement them. And I think the people who are in authority, they are not doing a great job effectively. So we realized that that is one big reason. Okay, now how do we get the reports? We know people don't want to give their identity when they report because there's, I told you, name shame, family blame. The harassment continues till the judiciary gives you a resolution which takes 10 years, not their problem. Our country is hugely populated. So we thought, what if we get people to report anonymously? And technology, I mean, we were at the helm where technology was bursting, so we wanted to do something where we could reach the last person, it's like the last mile connectivity. And we thought, what if we come up with a map where we are inviting people to anonymously report, and that's how Safecity was born. We launched the Safecity platform on 26th of December 2012 after Nirbhaya, after sitting in millions of protests, lighting candles. This is what we thought is something we could sustain. So that's how Safecity was born.
Lovely, thank you. So what motivated me to have this session today is, instead of just talking, oh, this happens in India, or this happens everywhere, Red Dot and Safecity is one organization which is actually doing something towards it. And the most interesting part is we all are from technology here, and Safecity app is all about technology. So Supreet, can you just help the audience understand how you are leveraging technology towards this mission?
So I think, we believe that even though we require a top-down approach where leadership is holding the baton of change, we also need a bottom-up approach, working on the ground. But how do you bring them together? Hearsay, conversations, I think we've been having them for so long. So when we launched Safecity, the idea was to collect data that we could show the community as well as the authorities, because then that's evidence that there's a problem, right? What was invisible so far, now we have proof that
Yes.
it's not invisible, it's actually there. Now, can you do something about it? So I'll give you a couple of impact stories. So while as individuals, if you can just download the app, we have a huge thing outside which Resha has put up. If you can download the app, you can use it as an individual. So in case I was coming to Sahara Star at 10 in the night for this, I could go to the street side and see if there have ever been any cases of any form of sexual violence in this area at the time you want me here. And if yes, I could have called you and said, Resha, can you send me a car or can I bring somebody with me? So you're more situationally aware for your own safety. The second is communities, right? So I'll take the example of, this example is very close to my heart because I worked with the people on the ground in this, and this was one of our first interventions. There's a place called Sanjay Camp in Delhi. Now, like a lot of localities in Delhi and other cities, this is not a recognized, legalized society. So there are 250 families who live there who are not so privileged, and they share one community toilet amongst them. So let's say there are almost 1,200, 1,300 people using one community toilet. The data we collected was that there's a lot of groping, eve teasing, taking pictures and videos are non-consensual. So we went to the community, and while we were entering, the entrance was probably this big, and while the community toilet was on the right, on the left-hand side, there was a long green sofa. There were men and boys sitting on it. And while we walked through, there's a boy, 16 years old, and he whistled. So we just turned around and we said, okay, listen, we are going to your community. We are going to the community hall. If you want to talk to us and say something, why don't you come there? You know? So he was a little flabbergasted, young boy. Nobody has ever turned around and said anything to him. We went to the community hall and we had around 25 women sitting there, young girls and women, and we shared the data with them. And we said, we know that this is something that's been happening there. So they looked at each other for a bit, and then one girl stood up and she said, yes, I have been groped. Then another woman stood up and she said, you know, this guy, he comes whenever I go in, because there's no latch at the door, he comes and he always stands outside the door. You know, it scares me. And one after another, every girl and woman in that room had a story. And they said that we wait for it to be night to go to the restroom, or we wait for other people so that one can stand on guard outside while I go inside. And we didn't realize it, but that young boy who had whistled at us, he was standing somewhere at the back outside the room and listening to us. So anyway, we decided we need to do something. They decided, and we said, okay, what? So they said, we want to pass on a message, but we can't talk to them because this community is extremely closed, and it's very heavily patriarchal. Women don't get phones to use unsupervised as well. So we said, okay, let's use art. I'm an artist, so art is very close to my heart again, and we said, okay, let's use art. We taught the girls to paint. We got paints, brushes, and they painted all the walls of the community toilet. So in one side, one girl actually visualized what she went through there. So she's walking with a dupatta, with a stole like this, and a guy is pulling it off her. And she wrote, is this right, in her own Hindi language. And on one side of the wall, they wrote down all the Indian penal codes. So, I mean, they painted every inch of those walls, and it was evening, we were going, and these men were sitting outside and looking, and they just looked and they were laughing or, you know, passing comments. We didn't say anything. We were very scared that these girls are known to these men. They're probably from their households, and we don't know what's going to happen when we go tomorrow. Anyway, we went in the morning. To our surprise, the green couch had disappeared. The boy who whistled at us came to us and said, I didn't know that my sister also faces this. Another boy came and said, we were just having fun, you know. We didn't know that it's actually making so much of a difference to somebody. That boy has become a Safecity champion, and he's our biggest ally. He has helped girls to continue education. Now, quickly, I know we have very limited time, but now I want to tell you how we are using this data with the authorities. I'll share a very recent example, and it's in continuation. We are still working with them. So the Commissioner of Police of Faridabad, he's known to me and my partner, and he said, how can we help? We want to do something. So we picked up one area in Faridabad. Those of who don't know Faridabad, it's a small city in Haryana, state of Haryana, which is extremely highly patriarchal. You would heard enough and more stories of women getting killed in that state. So we picked up an area, we spoke to as many people on the roads, on the streets, in shops, in residences. We tried to collect information of what the perception of safety was for women and girls. We also spoke to men and other genders. We spoke to, I think, around 4,000 people in 3 months. We collected around 2,500 reports on sexual violence in public spaces. And then we visualized it. And we went back to the Commissioner of Police and his team, and we showed this data. They said, we want to understand what can we do? How can we change it? Because we know this problem was there, but we didn't have data. Now we have data. So this area, between 7 and 9 in the night, because they are wine shops, women and girls have always faced groping or commenting. We need to ensure that the constables are placed in this place at that time so that there's no violence. And they did that. But the effect of that one pilot was that I just got called today morning. They want to replicate this in every city and district of Haryana now. We are working, we are training the police constables. We are educating them and training them to go with us to the communities and talk, because there's a big gap in trust between the community and the police. So we are having open houses with the police, where we are taking community members into police stations and making them have a chat. They're showing them what the police station works like, what conditions they work in. I mean, it's not only Haryana, we are doing the same thing in Chennai as well, with the state, with the BMC and the police. So just a few ways of how we're using the data. The data is not only visualized for these stakeholders, we also have an area where a regular individual can come and add any tip. So if I have faced commenting at some place, I can actually go and give a tip that, okay, maybe you can use this route because it's very well lit, and you'll probably be safe. We also have mapped out police stations and hospitals on our app. So if somebody needs any help, they can just go to the map and find out the closest and the nearest safe space, so to say, the police or the hospital. So that's how we are using the data and the technology for ending gender-based violence.
That's amazing. You know, as a mother of an 8-year-old daughter, I think the first thing I'm going to do is just download this app. It is not an advertisement, absolutely. But what Supreet is talking about is awareness on both ends. On one side, telling the society that this is wrong. And on the other side, empowering ourselves, our daughters, our sisters, our friends, that there is something like Safecity available for you to check before you step out of your own house. Thank you so much, Supreet, for that again. And before we just finish, I mean, I have to say this, that how Dynatrace, like I'm in marketing, so I have to bring some sort of branding in here. So how Dynatrace collects data, analyzes it, and helps you with a solution. I think what Supreet is doing, what Safecity and Red Dot is doing, they collect the data, they collect the proof, they analyze, they present it to the decision makers, and they are working out a solution, right? So that's a beautiful collab here. So now as us, as individuals, as a corporate company, what can we do to change the situation and make it a safer space for all of us?
So, you know, I see a lot of men in this room. I know that there are many men in technology and representation of women, although I can see a few women there. The smallest thing that each one of us can do in our individual capacity is recognize your own biases and stereotypes that you struggle with and try to challenge them. Go back home and teach your boys consent. Have conversation amongst yourself on inclusivity. How can you be inclusive for everyone in your family, all genders, people from different and varied backgrounds and demographics? You know, you have women working with you. There were times when companies didn't have enough women, so they didn't even have a separate washroom for them. And we still face that problem in some places. So that's the smallest thing. If you can educate yourself on how you can be an active bystander, They're the 5 Ds of you can distract, document. You can actually help a situation deflect or resolve by just distracting the people who are in the situation. So how do you do these things? Like in COVID, there were domestic cases, violence is happening all around you, right? There was a flat in my building, and I knew that the woman is being beaten up because you could hear the voices, but the society would do nothing. And there was nobody to go to. So, I just rang the bell and I asked for sugar. You've all heard the story enough and more times. And I actually did it. And it helped in deflecting the situation. And she called me the next day, said, can I come? I need some salt. She came over and had a chat with me of what's happening. Small things. If you see something happening on the road and you feel that the situation is volatile, but you're not sure what to do, just go and ask for an address, ask for direction. For a moment, the people just get out of that. It takes a moment for them to snap out of that volatile situation, and probably you've deflected something which could get worse. So be conscious bystanders, active bystanders rather. And if you can, in your companies, if you can probably be more conscious, create a support system for people who are facing it. And if you see one of your friends or peers is doing something which is not correct or which is stereotyped, you can correct them. So can we be more open to feedback on ourselves as well? So these are things you can do as individuals. As I think companies, if you can make sure your policies are gender safe and gender equal, if you have stringent implementation of those policies, if you can create a culture where people can come up to you and talk. Why do we always need a whistleblower to do something, right? Why can't people just talk to each other? And even if nobody's talking, you can be the first one to start a conversation if you see something happening around you. If you can make sure that people are trained as corporates, can you see that all your people are trained, from the ground staff who supports you to probably the leadership? I think that's where the change will come in from. And apart from that, if you can please use Safecity and tell us as to how we can help you create safer cultures in your corporates, we are more than happy to collaborate.
Thank you. Thank you so much.